To navigate everyday life, you have to operate on a simple, unspoken assumption. You possess knowledge about the world around you. You know that you have hands. You know the sun will rise tomorrow. And you know the physical ground beneath you is solid. But look at this image of the Milky Way galaxy. If I asked you to confirm an exact, even number of stars in this picture, your immediate response would be ordinary skepticism. You lack the evidence to verify the claim, so you naturally withhold your agreement. Every proposition triggers three stances. You can accept it as true, creating belief. You can reject it, creating disbelief. Or, lacking evidence, you adopt suspended judgment. Philosophical skepticism applies this third stance with unyielding discipline, demanding suspension of judgment for absolute facts. This discipline operates on escalating scales. Humane skepticism demands we suspend judgment on inductive reasoning, arguing that just because the sun rose yesterday doesn't guarantee it will rise tomorrow. Cartesian skepticism pushes further, demanding we doubt the existence of the external physical world entirely, suggesting your senses could be deceiving you. But the ultimate scale is Pyrrhonian skepticism. The Pyrrhonian mandate is universal. It demands the suspension of judgment on every single proposition that can be formed by the human mind. This extreme posture serves a specific function. Pyrrhonian skepticism operates as a structural stress test. By attacking every possible assertion, it forces epistemologists to physically map the architecture of human knowledge to see if anything can survive the pressure. To execute this stress test, the Pyrrhonians rely on a specific logical mechanism known as Agrippa's trilemma. The trilemma operates on one foundational, unforgiving rule. Every asserted belief requires a secondary, supporting belief to justify it. A claim standing completely alone is legally invalid. This rule turns epistemology into a geometry problem. If every single node of knowledge strictly requires an incoming arrow of justification from another node, the physical structure of belief becomes mathematically impossible to complete. To understand how humans can claim to know anything at all, we have to look closely at how the Pyrrhonians use this geometric rule to systematically dismantle the possibility of knowledge. Let's build the trilemma. A person, a dogmatist, asserts a single belief. The skeptic immediately challenges it, asking for proof. The dogmatist provides a second belief to support the first, drawing an arrow between them. This is inferential justification. But the skeptic simply asks for the justification of that second belief, then the third, then the fourth, triggering the first geometric trap, the infinite regress. The infinite regress fails an immediate reality check. Human minds are finite. We cannot process, hold, or articulate an endless, non-repeating chain of logical reasons. The structure collapses. The dogmatist attempts a new geometry. Instead of pulling from a new source, the third belief loops back, relying on the very first belief for justification. This triggers the second trap, circularity. Circularity fails the test of logic. No proposition can serve as the foundational evidence for itself. You cannot prove it is raining by stating the ground is wet, and then prove the ground is wet by stating it is raining. Cornered, the dogmatist tries one last geometry. They present a belief and refuse to justify it. It has an outgoing arrow but nothing supporting it. This triggers the third trap, the hypothesis. The hypothesis fails because a blind, unsupported assertion has no validity. If the starting node possesses no epistemic weight, it has zero justification to transfer down the chain to the other beliefs. This third trap is powered by a devastating underlying assumption known as premise 2. There are no basic justified beliefs. It asserts that a belief simply cannot be legally justified without an outside reason. The trap closes completely. If belief chains cannot be infinite, cannot be circular, and cannot start from an unsupported hypothesis, then the geometric structure of justified knowledge is impossible to build. To escape the trilemma, modern philosophers have to break its rules. The first major escape attempt attacks premise 2 directly. This theory is called foundationalism. Foundationalism argues that the geometric chain can stop legally. It defines a new structural element, the basic belief. This is a node that possesses internal justification without needing an incoming arrow from another belief. The mechanism driving this anchor is raw, non-linguistic experience. Under this model, the physical, empirical act of seeing or feeling something serves as a non-belief bedrock, pushing justification upward into the cognitive chain. This approach fractures into two schools. Traditional foundationalism argues that this bedrock must be strictly limited to internal mental states. You cannot claim there is a physical object. You can only claim, I am currently having the internal experience of seeing an object. By retreating to the internal sensation, the traditionalist removes the risk of being wrong about the world. But this certainty creates a new problem: isolation. The foundation is secure within the mind, but it provides no evidence for the existence of anything outside it. In contrast, moderate foundationalism allows the bedrock boundary to reach outward. It permits raw experience to directly justify claims about the external world, validating the assertion that there is a physical object in front of me. By reaching outward, the moderate approach introduces a new vulnerability. It requires accepting meta-fallibilism. Because human senses are flawed, we must accept the risk that our basic bedrock beliefs about our experiences might simply be wrong. Foundationalism successfully escapes the infinite regress by building its chains on a solid floor. To do so, epistemologists are forced to gamble on the reliability of human perception. The second escape attempt abandons the floor entirely. It begins by questioning the trilemma's core assumption that justification must be a linear, one-way street. This is coherentism. It violently rejects linear asymmetry. In this geometry, individual beliefs do not justify each other in a straight line. The unit of justification is the entire holistic system. A system of beliefs is justified purely by its internal explanatory integration. The denser the connections, and the tighter the logical consistency between the nodes, the higher the justification for the entire web. Look at this gear system. It represents the fatal flaw of coherentism, known as the isolation objection. The gears interlock flawlessly, yet they are suspended in midair, completely disconnected from any physical motor. Imagine two minds with highly coherent, perfectly logical webs of belief. Right now, person A is swimming in a pool, and person B is sitting in a chair reading a book. If we magically extract those belief webs and swap them, the internal geometry of the nodes remains flawlessly integrated, yet person A is now swimming while firmly believing they are reading. Coherentism elegantly solves the trilemma's regress problem by closing the system, but by ignoring the need for empirical bedrock, it risks validating a perfectly logical network of beliefs that is entirely hallucinated. Foundationalism and coherentism are the dominant models, but two outlier theories escape the trilemma by attacking its remaining absolute rules: Premise 5, which forbids infinite chains, and Premise 7, which requires all endpoints to possess justification. By rejecting Premise 5, we get infinitism. This model embraces the infinite regress, not as a logical trap, but as a valid working geometry. The infinitist defense argues that a human mind doesn't need to actively think infinite thoughts to possess them. The chain is constructed of implicit, available beliefs lying dormant, ready to be called upon and move to the front the moment a challenge requires them. Conversely, by rejecting Premise 7, we get positism. This theory argues that an inferential chain can legally terminate in a completely unjustified assertion, provided that assertion serves a specific function. Look at this photograph of philosopher Ludwig of Wittgenstein. He formalized this concept under the term hinge proposition. A hinge proposition is a foundational posit accepted without proof, simply because it is physically required for a society's daily justificatory practices to function. Take this photograph as evidence of how hinge propositions behave over time. For the vast majority of human history, the proposition, "no one has been to the moon," was an unquestioned societal posit. It served as a functional truth until scientific progress broke it. Infinitism relies on redefining the capacity of human memory, while positism relies on the consensus of societal norms. Both escape the trap by transforming strict epistemic necessity into practical human virtue. Agrippa's trilemma forces a choice. You must anchor to a bedrock, weave a closed web, stretch into infinity, or bolt your logic to an unproven hinge. At this point, you might recognize a distinct paradox in the Pyrrhonian skeptic's position. If their absolute rule is to suspend judgment on every single proposition, shouldn't they be forced to suspend judgment on their own trilemma? Pointing out this self-refutation is common, but it misses the actual utility of the skeptic's weapon. The trilemma does not need to be a perfectly sound doctrine to operate as an effective diagnostic tool. Under the scrutiny of this tool, a modern epistemological consensus has formed. Very few contemporary philosophers rely entirely on one pure geometry. Instead, they engineer hybrid models. By fusing the shapes together, epistemologists cancel out their individual vulnerabilities. They construct systems that utilize the empirical anchoring of the foundationalist bedrock, surrounded and supported by the dense, explanatory integration of the coherentist web. By striking at the root of certainty, Pyrrhonian skeptics mapped the exact vulnerabilities of our logic. They didn't destroy human knowledge. By forcing every belief to physically prove its structural integrity, they forced us to draft its blueprints.